Recognize Mr. Cloud from Texas for 5 minutes of questions.
Hello, thanks for being here. I want to just first echo the chairman's statements from the beginning and just the general sentiment of this committee that, of course, we support and are so thankful for the teachers throughout our nation who, through a pandemic, worked very hard to get kids and to keep kids going. Now, we've learned a lot, of course, since then. My wife is also a teacher, and whether pandemic or not, there's a lot of work that gets done. I've seen the late hours. I've seen the papers being graded, and we're so thankful for teachers. I do want to talk about the concern that some of the guidance was politicized. Very early on, we knew that COVID-19 didn't have the same effect on children as it did as adults, especially vulnerable populations. Early data said that children were unlikely to suffer serious illness or death as a result of COVID-19. Children comprised less than 0.01% of hospitalizations and 0.0005% of COVID-19 deaths in a study published by the CDC. And we're talking about data as early as March through July of 2020. In June of 2020, the American Academy of Pediatrics strongly recommended that all policy considerations for the opening school year should be should begin with the goal of having students presently in school. When former President Trump similarly pushed for schools to be reopened in the fall of 22, the ATF activated their membership, and I believe you said that it was too little too late at the time. In February of 2021, the AFT celebrated the CDC's release of the final operational strategy, and it was said for the first time since the start of the pandemic, a rigorous roadmap based on science that members can use to fight for safe reopening. And Director Walensky assured the public that the operational strategy was developed by medical experts and free of political meddling. Just before the guidance came out, of course, you had communication and provided guidance when it came to some of the logistics of reopening. I don't take issue with that. I do find it odd that part of the communication was it was scheduling the communication and the concern that the union and the Biden administration might stand apart from a messaging standpoint and the need to make sure that you're coordinating in regards of a political statement. Are you a medical expert?
I am not a medical expert.
And I wanted to bring your attention to this because I found this enlightening as well. This is your State of the Union report. I'm sure.
Which one? Which
familiar,
year? We
familiar
do
to 2020 to 2022.
Okay.
So I'm sure you're familiar with this. It reads with all the passion and gusto of a political manifesto. There's everything in here on thoughts from promoting government-run healthcare, inflation, immigration, abortion, voting and election law, efforts to promoting unionization, not just for teachers, but for all industries, Second Amendment issues, weighing in on the war of the Ukraine. I was also struck by what wasn't in here. The word political appears 29 times, and almost always in the context of dollars spent on campaigns. Reading only appears 16 times, and usually in the context of promoting books that many parents are concerned about being in their schools. Science only appears 5 or 6 times and related to COVID. Math only appears once, and it was in a time when the American Federation of Teachers was advocating against a community that wanted to streamline and focus funding on math, reading, science, and social studies. It went on to talk about how some of the money is being used. Colorado used solidarity funds to maintain the Democratic majority in the Colorado House of Representatives, the Florida Education Association. It went on to say for the first time in Florida, Republican voters outnumber Democratic voters, and it went on to talk about the effort to reverse that trend that the union has. Georgia Federation of Teachers contributed to the school board race and state Democratic caucus. All that is allowed and fine. But the concern I have is when the White House comes and says that there was no political input, that what we constantly see is an organization that you're not an education organization, although you have educations, you're not a medical organization, you're a political organization, and that you are weighing in on the guidance. Are you still a superdelegate to the Democratic Party?
I am still a delegate to the DNC, yes.
Okay, which, again, you have all realms to do, and you should participate. I have a concern when the White House is making decisions based on political science versus real science. I think my time is up, and I yield back.